America was strange as well, because our kids had spent half their life now in the jungle of Nicaragua, where there's monkeys and there's sloths and there's cows. You know, there's not a lot of action except for a whole lot of wildlife. And we landed in America. We landed in 24 hours after the Black Lives Matters riot.
Okay.
So we're walking the streets and there's just the army everywhere with huge guns just patrolling everywhere. And our kids are freaking out. They've never seen, they've forgotten what other people are like. And,
Sure.
And
in a place as chaotic as America as well. America's chaotic at the best of times.
It is.
But to land during those times, COVID, Black Lives Matter, it must have been, your mind must have just been spinning hard. And which city do you mind? Did you find yourselves in the States?
We land in Hollywood, which
wow.
is what?
LA.
Yeah. Thank you. Forgotten. So it was in the heart of Black Lives Matter. That's where there was devastation and
Yep.
yeah, there was rubble. There was a lot of damage on the streets. So
Wow.
that was the epicenter of Black Lives Matter.
Sure.
And I guess that's such a change in our life. Like 3 weeks earlier, very cruisy, and this was just the beginning of what our life has sort of become over this time. It's like we don't care what is happening around us. This is crazy. We just have one focus.
Yep.
We need to get our daughter.
And 3 weeks before that, you sort of thought, oh, we'll be in Nicaragua, we'll coast through COVID, we'll be eating bananas and fruit and living sort of modestly, but, you know.
Yep, safely. Yeah, we used to get fruit delivered to the front door. Sorry, to the front of the driveway.
Right.
We'd wash fruit because that's what you did when COVID first hit. Everyone was panicked of everything. You'd leave it in the sun for a while, then you wash it with soap with gloves on,
and your mask on,
and then you bring it into and then after another 2 hours, then you might give it to the kids.
Right. So all that's gone out the window, and you're in America.
We're in America. We in this crazy situation of chaos, civil unrest in America, and all the time we're just in contact with our pediatrician back in Darwin. What he's doing is he's processing some of the test results that we got in Nicaragua while we're waiting for that flight. So we got as many tests as we could possibly get. We didn't know how long we were going to get stuck in America. So let's just get as much information to our doctor to start processing so that from afar, from remotely, they might be able to start giving us some answers.
Yep.
And so that's what he's doing. I won't go into the detail of the test because it was a developing country and they don't have great, they don't have the most modern facilities.
Sure.
Or safety precautions either.
Yeah. I mean, I remember getting an injection for yellow fever when I was in Peru.
Yeah.
And, the language barrier was one thing. You didn't know the sort of hygiene standards. I made sure that I watched them take the needle out of the plastic, all that sort of stuff. I didn't even know if I was getting the right injection, you know what I mean? So there was those type of things. And I couldn't imagine what it would have been like for something as complex as what you were dealing with. And then again, dealing with all of those other factors involved. It's really hard to comprehend, to be honest.
It's really surprising how safe we are. I'll tell you one quick story going back. I'm sorry, I'm going back.
No,
but,
please.
One of the tests was to see it was nerves. It was to see whether the nerves were working or not. So she was connected to all these electrodes and given these zaps to see what was working. They put the machine on us and said, "This is how hard it's going to be." And they gave us a zap. And that's going to be uncomfortable for her, but she'll be all right.
Yeah.
Then they put it on her, and I watched them turn the dial from 1 to 20. Oh. Come on, mate, I'm not blind.
Yeah.
I might not speak your language, but I can see what you're doing here. And then after that test, then they wanted to take an MRI, full scan. In MRI rooms, you're not allowed to be in the same room because there's all this electro whatever.
Sure.
I've got photos of my wife just sitting there next to the machine with no safety kit on or anything.
Yeah.
We didn't know you're not meant to be in there. But on the way to get this MRI, like you can't take an MRI of a baby without them moving around.
Yeah.
And so you've got to sedate them.
Right.
It was a Sunday and the doctor had his day off, so he didn't want to come in. So he said, okay, you come meet me at my house. We turned up at this house. After we turned up at the house, he sends the nanny out. So he tells the nanny, gives the nanny instructions in Spanish, medical instructions in Spanish. The nanny or helper comes out to Golden next to the car, gives her a needle and says, give this to her, to Tallulah, give this needle to Tallulah on the way to the hospital. And so how do I do that? It's like, we'll do it at a red light.
My God.
So we're driving, Golden's telling me this story, and Golden can speak Spanish, which is great, but it still didn't help the situation. She explained to me, 5 minutes before we get to the hospital, we've got to give her this needle. We've got to either pull the car over or do a red light. And we both agreed that neither of us are going to do that. We just refused.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. But that was the instructions. That's the safety, the level of safety. And it was a misunderstanding. It was a misunderstanding, which was, we're thankful we didn't try and give her the needle. But when we got to the hospital and we went in to get the x-rays done, the MRI done, we told them the situation. We just didn't have enough courage to give our daughter a needle.
Sure.
And they said, oh, look, I'll do it for you. And they unscrewed the needle part and just squirted in the liquid into her mouth.
Oh, my God.
We could have killed our baby with an oral. I don't know if that kills them. I don't know. Maybe I'm over, but craziness.
But it just shows you sort of the precarious position you were in at all times.
Yeah.
You know, those small sort of almost benign, it seems like to us from a developed nation, you know, how close to disaster you are sort of at all times in a third world country.
Yeah. I don't know how to, I don't want to I don't want to say bad things about travel.
No.
Travel's amazing.
Yep. It's changed my whole perspective on things. So
yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. But it was super scary. You realize how little you know. When you don't have all of these safety structures around, all these facilities, all this free doctor to walk in off the street.
Yep. So it makes you thankful, doesn't it?
And appreciative of their society must be just so resilient. Mm-hmm. They work on a different level than what we do. We're so protected. So I guess it ends up with we get on a flight from America. It only took, I don't know, maybe 72 hours to get on a flight in America.
Yep.
They dropped us into Brisbane, and that's when another level of panic is happening because it's COVID and you're bringing people, you're repatriating people. And so it's more army. There was a layer of police, and behind the layer of police was a layer of army, and everyone's hazmat to the hilt. Mm-hmm. You know, we're potentially bringing COVID into the country. So absolute extreme safety. And so we got ushered into a line. That line then led to a bus, and we didn't know where that bus was going. But each bus headed off in a different hotel, and we got put in a hotel for 2 weeks to do our quarantine.
Yep.
We arrived there, the hotel, about midnight. It took 3 hours just to get out of the bus because they have to process people. And that's when we took some relief. We had the kids. Yeah, we had the kids in bed with us. We just took a minute, and we slept. We were just exhausted. Mm-hmm. The next morning we fed the kids, and we looked at each other and went, it's time to it's time to get to the hospital. We didn't know how we were going to do it, but we contacted the police downstairs and said, look, we've got someone who needs to get she needs an ambulance. And so they're like, okay.
Had her condition deteriorated at all?
Look, she was a blob. So when you hold a blob, you've got to kind of throw her arms over your shoulder like they're a scarf.
Right.
That's where she was at, but she was still, functioning. Mm-hmm. Okay, she's breathing, eating, smiling.
Okay.
But she was panicked. She didn't know what was happening to her. So we got in the ambulance. We split up. Golden and Tallulah go to the hospital. I'll hang out with Finn in quarantine. That's where we took a breath of fresh air. Goal number 1 achieved.
Yep.
Get the help we need into the safety of the Australian medical system. That's the best place we could possibly be. It didn't mean it was going to make anything easier for us, because within 48 hours, a lot more testing went on in Queensland and Brisbane Children's Hospital, and they came to the conclusion they don't know what it is.
Right.
Their best guess is it's leukodystrophy, which is a very aggressive disease, and they said, look, what's the prognosis? And they said, look, it's really hard to tell. It's an unusual disease, but considering how quickly she's declining, it might be months. So now we're stuck in quarantine for 2 weeks, and this could be, that could be a quarter of her life.
Yep.